Everybody, thanks for watching. And just a quick reminder that Digital Self is now available. Make sure you guys check this one out. This is a very important video to watch, just to get you guys into more understanding about these vaccinations and what's going to be taking place, and the whole thing with the nanoparticles that they have mentioned on their site. Got into a little bit of a few debates about the nanoparticles. A lot of people didn't believe in them, but they are explaining what they are, and I think people need to understand what that is and what that means. Very important video. If you have taken the shot and if you plan on taking it, you need to understand what this is, what they're going to be doing going forward with this, and how it's definitely going to affect everybody. So make sure you guys see this video. Also, the app. So the Merkabah Academy app is now available on Android devices. It will be available soon on iOS, iPhones. Apple is real, they anal about their apps and what they allow in the App Store. So it's just a couple more things that got to get completed first before the iOS app is available. But definitely, if you have Android, it's available. If you've been on the site lately, you've seen the new update briefly. So the site is going to be completely redone soon. We did a test the other day. Some of you seen it, some of you didn't, but you see how cool it looks and how it's going to definitely bring everything together. So this again will be probably like the last week for the lifetime membership and lifetime digital downloads. Probably after this week that won't come back again because of how the site will change. So this will be your final chance to take advantage of it this week. So definitely do that if you want it. Also, new books coming up. Definitely a second version of my first book, the Self-Inflicted Religious Deception. Revised, definitely was a few errors in the book. A lot of people pointed them out, but we didn't really have time to really edit the book because of everything I explained to you guys what happened with that whole process. So second version's coming and 2 new books will follow. So a lot going on. Again, definitely get the app and get the update once the whole site is switched over. By the end of March it should be, but the app is definitely still worth getting now. Also, again, take advantage of the sale one more time, because I know a lot of people asked about was it still available, and it still is. Definitely the link is in the description, so take advantage of it. So again, I've received a lot of questions about the vaccinations, and I know a lot of people want to know what's going on as I put out the information. Yeah, of course, stuff doesn't make any sense. We all understand. Dr. Fauci coming on and basically saying that the vaccinations won't stop everything. You have 7 new strains. You have the UK strain as well as the South African and Brazilian strain. So you have these, 7 new strains in America. You have these 3 variants or what have you around the world, and they're saying that the vaccination is basically set to take care of one. And as I talk about in the video, how all that is bullshit and why that is in place. So you need to understand what's going on. But to get into this video, because what I'm going to try to start doing on Sundays, Saturdays or Sundays, is put out videos on the Bible, because a lot of people are asking for more updated content, which you really can't update too much. But there's still a large number of Christians out there and people just want information about what this stuff is all about. One of the biggest conversations I got into recently was about monotheism, and the Bible being, a monotheistic religion. And when you look at the definition of monotheism, it's the belief in one God, that there's only one God. So when you get into this whole thing as it entails with the Bible, you got to look at it, and you got to read it. And when you read the Bible, you got to ask yourself a question, how can you be monotheistic and believe in a religion that has one God when the God of your religion believed in other gods? So for Christians to be monotheistic in the Bible, or Christianity to be a monotheistic religion, the God of the Bible believed in other gods. I mean, that's one of the main points of the Old Testament, and what the whole conquering was about for the Hebrew Israelites was because these tribes believed in other gods. So we got to look at this whole thing. But one of the things you got to realize, and speaking to Christians and people who don't understand mindsets and, developing your mind and understanding a different level of comprehension beyond what you have. See, you, and all you know is you, really. And a lot of people don't like to believe that they have been fooled or tricked, or that they don't know something that's really obvious. So a lot of people are not able to comprehend on certain levels because they don't allow themselves to, or because they haven't just basically done research to do so. So this whole thing is really just a matter of comprehending basic, knowledge, common sense. And I know we use that a lot when it comes to the Bible and when we debating this whole thing, but it really is just understanding what is so basic in principle, as far as seeing something that says one thing and clearly seeing that it's not true. It's how can you deny that? So even when you try to have an intelligent conversation with a Christian, for you to deny 1 + 1 = 2, how can we continue if that's your point, if that's what you want to believe in? There's no reason. So what would you say to a person that believes that? They're not intelligent. So you would leave the conversation. So in the Old Testament, you have the Hebrews going out. God sends them out, take back the promised land, the land that's supposed to be theirs. And through your journey, you're going to go and wipe people out and kill them because they worship other gods. Now, using this whole rationality thing, this happened before the Bible, supposedly. So where do we get the authority on worshiping one God and the authority on we should only worship this one God? Where do we get that from? We get that from Christianity. We have not been taught as, us here in America, or we don't know of any other religions where they taught that the God of Christianity says you're supposed to do this. There was no Bible back then. There was no doctrine. So to go and wipe people out for believing something or worshiping something that's supposed to not even exist doesn't make sense, if you understand what I'm saying. This is where that comprehension thing comes into play. So God, what is that? And do we know if these people had an understanding of what that is, what God actually is? Because if you are to say, I'm Tim, are we supposed to, think that there's only one Tim in existence where somebody else could be named Tim? So you have to think of what is one of one. You understand? There is only one Empire State Building. Period. We know that. You got to go to New York to see it. That's the only one. Period. You can see a replica, but everybody knows it's a replica. You can see a picture, a painting, so on and so forth. Everybody understands there's only one original. And this is what we know. That's common knowledge. So to say one God, this is the one and only, this is something that everybody would have to have common knowledge of to even comprehend in the first place. So God going out and having these people slaughtered for not worshiping him, how are they even to know who he is if he didn't present himself to them? If you understand. Now the Bible calls Satan the God of this world. So again, another God. So for a religion that's supposed to be monotheistic, there are a lot of talks of many different gods. Now you could say monotheistic in the sense that the believer believes in one God, that there is one God. That's who you choose to believe in, just that one. And then you have God in the Bible saying, I am the one true God. But as I will show you, and as you already know, there are many instances in the Bible where, God himself tells you that's not true. And the actions of God don't fit with what we have been told about God. So we'll get into that in a second. But Bible calls Satan the God of this world. So when you go to the Garden of Eden story, Genesis, right? Remember, the serpent tells Eve that, God knows once you eat off this tree, you will become as gods, knowing both good and evil. So how can you become as God, knowing good and evil? And basically you have God equating, or the serpent equating God to the same level as him. They're going to be like us, and God saying to the serpent, they're going to be like us, knowing good and evil. So if anybody who's reading the Bible and not getting that it's esoteric and taking the book literally, it's crazy. So it's clearly a lot of things that are not supposed to be taken literal or, straightforward at all. And a lot of Bible believers like to jump back and forth with that as something being literal or something being, a parable. But they want to clear as day believe that a woman can come from a man's rib when you will only ever see that in a book. So why would you take that literal? And we know that's just not true. So looking at that whole thing, you have Satan, the god of this world. You have the serpent saying to God or to Adam and Eve, he don't want you to eat from this tree because you will basically be like him, God. So calling into question monotheism in these aspects, in these references, is definitely justified, especially since we go to the fact that what we have been told about God, the Bible tells you something completely different. Case in point, the whole Garden of Eden thing. So the whole notion, God knows all, God sees all, as it says many times in the Bible. Clearly, God didn't know the serpent was on the most important tree in existence. And he didn't know that he was talking to Adam and Eve, or he would have been able to intervene before they ate of the tree. So you have many references in the Bible to God being, knowing all and seeing all. So Acts 15:18 says, known unto God are all his works from the beginning of the world. Proverbs 15:3 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. Psalms 147:5, great is our Lord, and the great power, his understanding is infinite. Job 11:11, for he knoweth vain men, he seeth wickedness also. Will he not then consider it? And my favorite one, Job 1:6. So it says, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came unto them. It says, and the Lord said unto Satan, whence cometh thou? It's a question mark there. So causing the question, God knowing all and seeing all, when clearly he didn't see the serpent. Clearly, if he's supposed to know where evil is at all time, he should know that, there was Satan. Satan was coming. Satan was on the way. But he said to Satan, where the hell you come from? And it calls into question again what we have been told about the Bible. So you look at that. You look at the fact that God's supposed to know the future and know everything. He didn't know that these so-called fallen angels were supposedly coming into the daughters of men and creating these evil beings, and that everybody would become so evil that we have to kill everyone. So again, it's one of these things where we have to go and start looking at common sense stuff and understanding the difference between a story, something that's being told and conveyed to you in a parable form versus, actual reality where, it doesn't make sense for it to exist in reality. So another big thing I like to point out with the whole flood story, God basically drowned the world and killed everybody because he said, that every thought of the imaginations of their heart was, continually evil, that everybody was so evil and wicked, he had to just wipe everybody out. Now, how could you kill everybody on the planet except for Noah and his family and leave Satan alive? That doesn't make sense. So you also have to think that, God being all powerful, all knowing, and the serpent telling Adam and Eve, hey, he don't want you to eat off this fruit because he knows you're going to become as God. Now you're a God, you created everything, right? Created the universe, so on and so forth. God's actions after they ate the fruit was what? Kicked them out of the garden, and he put cherubims there with flaming swords and, blocked them from eating from the tree of life, as if he was frightened that they would eat of the tree and become a god like him. And how is this possible? Another thing you have to understand is, matter of fact, we'll get into that in a second, but look at that fact. And then look at the fact that, he leaves Satan alive after killing everybody. You have Adam and Eve, who preachers love to point out, original sin. We are born with original sin. We are corrupted because of the actions of Adam and Eve. So if God basically, says we're all inherited with this evil and everybody believes we're born evil, and that now because they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that their offspring is going to be born, knowing good and evil. Case in point, Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel, and that's like, he had the evil in him because of the actions of his parents. So if you're a guy and you know all, and you understand that Adam and Eve done this, why not kill them before they can reproduce and corrupt mankind? You wait till all these people are born, created supposedly by you, by God. Wait for them to become evil, which you knew that would happen because of the actions of Adam and Eve, and then you wipe them all out. Babies and all, everybody dead. When you could have, if you knew everything, you could have wiped out Adam and Eve and started over. Doesn't make sense. Now, one of the biggest things you got to remember when it comes to the Bible that Christians completely forget all the time. One, this is a book. Just that simple. This is a book. This is a book that somebody wrote. Period. This is not from God. There's no way to ever prove that. It's a book. Period. Just a book. This is something anybody can create. This book. You got to remember that. So, in remembering that, you also have to look in the Bible and remember that everything that's being said is an account of someone else. It is never God saying anything. It is never Jesus saying anything. It's what somebody said that they said. When you go into Genesis, it says, and then God, and then God, and then God created this, and God created that, and then. It constantly says that. You look throughout the Bible, a lot of times when it's speaking that God said something, it says, and God said. Even when you look at Ezekiel, 12:25, it says, for I, the Lord, will speak. Remember, this is what Ezekiel wrote. That Ezekiel said that God said. It's not God actually saying anything or doing anything. It's an account of these supposed prophets that said this is what happened, and there's no way to prove it. Now, that being said, you have to go back and look, which is, when you don't read it, the Bible, you're not going to know this stuff if you don't read the book. Go back and look. Even though these are accounts of what people said, I still want you to go and look in the Bible where God says himself, or where somebody says that God said, where it's in red, God saying, I am all powerful. I know all. I know everything. And even if you were to find that, you still have to remember, which you won't, that it's still written from somebody else. So never does God say, I know all. I know everything. So when you look at that, and you look at the actions via God not knowing the serpent is in the garden, God not knowing what Adam and Eve was going to do, God not knowing that the people was going to turn evil and he would have to wipe them all out. Whenever you look, it's talking about God knows this, he's all powerful, he's all seeing, and it's someone saying this. And it confirms the actions of God with the Garden of Eden story, as if he was worried about something. These would be the actions of man. When we look at the attributes of God and everything that happens, he has human emotions, jealousy, he knows evil. He's, vengeful and crazy. So you got to look at this to understand what it's talking about is, in fact, a man, men. And you need to look at that and understand that the book is not to be taken literal. So when you couple that with actual history, as I point out in my videos, the whole part about the Hebrews going out and conquering. Remember, they're supposed to be killing these people who worship other gods when there is no Bible in place. There's no organized religion in place. There's no authoritative religion that's saying you're supposed to worship this one God. So how can you judge people who have no clue what you stand for or what you're talking about, or that you created everything that they see? It doesn't make sense. But you have to look at it in concert with actual history, where we can't find no biblical history and actual history. And as I pointed out, the only history that fits with what we see in the Old Testament and the actions of the Hebrews is the Greeks. And all of these Amorites, Jebusites, Girgashites, Perizzites, and all these tribes that was wiped out by the Hebrews, as I said, are African tribes that were wiped out and had their land taken in real life by the conquest of the Greeks during the wars of the Debunking. Plain and simple. And I pointed out where you can match that up in the Bible when I talked about Tyre, or Tyrus, whatever you want to call it, and Ezekiel's vision of, what he saw with Nebuchadnezzar. Parallel it, clear as day, is talking about the Greeks. Nowhere else in world history does that fit. And the fact that, one, the deuterocanonical books, the Apocrypha, was taken out and then put back in later, tells you they was trying to hide this fact, because it deals with Alexander, and that causeway that was built by them still exists to this day. So real history doesn't match up with biblical history. And it's, again, the reason why the Bible needs your faith and belief is because there is no proof. This is not tough research to do on your own when you look and see that everything we've been told, about God and church and just, mainstream doesn't fit in the Bible or contradicts itself in the Bible. The biggest one, of course, is seeing God, where, in Exodus 33:11, it says that, Moses spoke to God face to face as, a man speaks to his friend. Now, when you speaking to your friend, does your friend appear in a glowy, mystical way where he's not able to be recognized as a human person? No. You speak to your friend, does your friend look like a spirit or something spooky, or a gem or jewel, or all these other weird things that they compare the visual or the, how God's supposed to look in the Bible? When clearly in the Bible, John 1:18 says, no man has ever seen God. That's a direct contradiction when you have, I've seen God face to face. They ate with God. Spoke to God as if he's speaking to, a man speaks to his friend. So you have these direct contradictions, and you have, which is, again, only argued about from people who's defending the Bible that are men. Not by the person who wrote the book, not by God himself, but by people who don't want to accept what's being said in front of their face. That is one of the biggest ones that Christians like, oh, you always go to that one. That's your one. But it's a lot more, as we know. So you have that, and you have the obvious things that we've been taught about God being all powerful and everything like that, that is not backed up in the Bible itself when you see these issues with God being perfect. God is good all the time. What we see clear as day in the Bible, God says, I make good and he makes evil. We see in the Bible, God sends evil spirits on people. So if God's supposed to be good all the time, one, God's telling you, I create evil. So that job, a lot of people thought was only Satan. God sends evil spirits on people. God's supposed to be good all the time. What does he know about this evil? And if he created evil, why? If everybody's supposed to be good. What is the point of all that? When you killing people and condemning people for evil stuff, when you yourself created the evil that you condemning them of doing. God or Jesus never says they love you in the Bible. Jesus never says to the people standing around, I love you all, I love you, or speaking to the reader, because this is an account of a person that wrote something that they supposedly had seen, that we know when we go back and look at these manuscripts that's supposed to make up these accounts, which makes up our books of the Bible, they're all flawed. They all have errors and mistakes. And we know during the life of Jesus, nobody who really existed around that time that was Greek scholars, that were historians, never talked about the man or wrote about him. So we don't get people writing about them until much later, decades later. So we can't go off of, in common sense, something that someone said about something so important when absolutely no proof backs it up, and it's absolutely absurd. It doesn't make sense. So this is what's taking place with religion and what people are choosing to believe. And again, people who think this is a prophetic book, that there's prophecy in it. Again, understand who is making this stuff come true and what this stuff entails, as far as it's dealing with governments, where the Bible says to love your government and pray for them and so on and so forth. And it's still, again, the King James Version that is different from those manuscripts I'm talking about that have errors and mistakes and problems with them. So King James Version is the one we was taught, during slavery. And as I said to you guys, as you guys know, you can see the Masonic layout of Washington, D.C. This is government. King James was a Mason. It's a reason why this book exists. This is a Bible. These people are supposed to be evil. And no, I'm not a Mason, for people that's going to say, you're a Mason. No, but I got this from them. This is a Bible. And in the Masonic Lodge, every one of them, you're going to find a Bible, a Quran, a Torah. And why do they have these books? Again, because they study them all. These are where you hide the secrets that you want your, people to understand. You hide them in plain sight. So the fact that we have that, King James, being a Mason, the person who he got to help him edit the Bible, Sir Francis Bacon, who is considered one of the fathers of Freemasonry. You have the Scottish Rite Masonic Lodge right there at the top of the capstone for the layout of Washington, D.C. You have the back of the dollar spells out Mason when you put the star over it, and so much more showing you what this is. In God we trust, alluding to the Bible God and alluding to, them. And everything that we can see with this Bible and how it relates to government and how governments have been in control, which we can see today more than ever. They are running things and are in control and have been in control of these so-called prophecies coming true. So again, with Isaiah, I think it's 17:1, with Damascus and Syria falling, that's Obama. That's government actions. We're talking about things that take place outside of the Bible, stuff that's inside we can't confirm. But these so-called events and things, changing that the Bible's talking about, this is going to be this way, this is going to be that way. These are the actions of governments. It's not prophecy coming true. It's people who have an agenda that, they go by these books, and they're basically hatching out a plan that was laid out. The problem is, and how it's hard for people to understand and comprehend this, is because the books was written so long ago. So that's something you need to think about deeper, which I get into in other videos. But the books was written so long ago, and you would ask yourself, how could these people still be around to complete an agenda written hundreds of years ago, even thousands of years ago? They don't make sense. Therefore, that level of comprehension never enters people's mind for them to think like that, because they don't do the research to understand what this stuff is all stemming from. So it's a lot, and I have a lot of videos. There's a lot that need to be understood and learned to really get into this. But the biggest thing that you deny is yourself when you try to understand something that you haven't got all the information about. When you destroy relationships between family members and friends because you act like you follow something that you really don't live by. You really don't follow. Christians, just being really hypocritical about something that they know nothing about, and judging people on something that they can't even comprehend because they have been taught to do so is what we're going through. And I get a lot of questions from people who are having these problems and issues with family members and loved ones. And then people get on me, on my Instagram. I do like to mess around and put up funny memes and just joke about biblical stuff. And I understand how serious it is, because I used to be Christian, but it's to really spark people's mind and get them to think. So no matter how much it may seem like you're talking to somebody, talking to a wall, some people you got to just walk away from. But for the most part, if you have the knowledge and understanding, it's worth saying what you got to say, because it's going to resonate. It's going to sit in their brain and they're going to think about it. And I've taken so many people out of Christianity and just religion, period. So many thank you emails and stuff I get from people all the time, all over the world, who get it. And it's about having that right mindset and that comprehension and consciousness, that understanding, that accepting common sense to do so. And not everybody's willing to do that, and not everybody is willing to accept it. So you got to accept that and move on. But I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch. We're going to try to put out more videos on this every Sunday, and do a lot more, bring a lot more to this channel as far as biblical stuff. Esoterically, I gotta do it the way I've been doing it with the DVDs and everything, the digital downloads, because I just can't put out everything here. And this video might even get flagged because it's kind of sort of talking against Christianity, but we'll see. But again, thank you guys for taking the time to watch. Make sure you get Digital Self. See this video, it's very important. Android users, you could download Merkabah Academy app. iOS, iPhone guys, it's coming soon. And the updates are coming soon, books coming soon, a lot of stuff coming. But thank you guys for supporting as always, and see you next video.